I'll tell you what, when you're waiting for an exposure, 6 minutes seems like a really, really long time. Hi everyone, thanks for joining me. Today's not the greatest of days for weather. We've got pretty much grey skies. There is a bit of texture in there. There's no light. I mean, the sun is over that way, and if I hold my hand up, there's no shadow, and it's been like that all day. I think it's extremely unlikely we're going to get a nice sunset this evening. And I was kind of tempted to just stay at home, but I decided to come out and just have a little play with some kind of minimalist long exposures. And I've chosen this particular beach because there's a big rock on the beach out there, which is surrounded by water, and that gives me the opportunity to use that as my hard object in amongst all that soft water and soft sky. So I'm going to walk through the process I'm going through to look at how my exposures could work. I'm probably going to play around with several different exposure times by tweaking my settings, and I'll talk you through that. And I'll probably show you all of the images that I take, and then probably choose whichever one is my favourite. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you do, and you're not already a subscriber, please consider hitting subscribe. And if you are a subscriber, thank you very much, I appreciate that. Okay, so first thing I'm going to need to do is set my composition up, and I'm going to shoot this with a longer focal length because I don't want the rock to be really tiny in the frame. I want it to have a bit of a presence in there. I also don't want to get in too far down into that water because I'm doing long exposures. If the water's washing up around the tripod feet, then the tripod's going to start to sink, and that's going to mean that I'm going to end up with a blurry image. I could stick some CDs, old CDs under there, but even with those, I think the likelihood is I'm still going to get a little bit of shift on some of the longer exposures. So I'm going to keep the tripod out of the water line. I'm thinking probably a horizontal format, probably with the rock down on the lower left hand side. There's no way to get the rock above the horizon even if I got very low down, so I'm not going to worry too much about that. I think it will look alright below the horizon. Okay, let's get set up. Okay, so I'm set up now. I've got my 70-200 lens on at 70mm. I've set my composition up with the rock in the lower left hand side of the frame and a lot of empty space around to get nicely blurred. I've got my 10-stop ND filter in. I checked the exposure time without the 10-stop filter in, and then I've calculated, I actually used the Photo Pills app to work out what I need. Now the light is a little bit changeable here, it keeps getting brighter and a bit duller. So I'm going to err on the side of caution. According to the app, anything up to about 1 minute and 8 seconds. I'm going to go for a minute, and I think that will work. That's at f11 and the ISO at 64. So let's get that one done first. Okay, that's the first one done. What I'm now going to do is I'm going to bring my ISO down to the low 1 setting. That's the equivalent of ISO 31 for exposure calculation purposes. Sorry if there's a load of noise going on. There's actually construction work going on immediately behind this beach, which I didn't know about. Hopefully the microphone's pointing this way so it's not picking up too much. Okay, so my second exposure then will be 2 minutes, f11, ISO 31. Let's try that one. Okay, final exposure. I'm going to go to f16 and I am going to shoot for 4 minutes and we'll see what that one looks like. And as I said, I'll show you all three and then I'll show you which one I think has worked the best, in my opinion. I think I might have a little play with doing some wider angle stuff now, really make it extremely minimal. What's that? A cormorant just landed in the waves up there. Too far away to show you, but I do like to see a cormorant. Oh, getting windy as well. I've now got my 16 to 35 lens on, 35mm. The composition is kind of very much the same as the previous one, except much wider angle, so there's a lot more negative space, a lot more sort of blurred sea and blurred sky, and a lot smaller rock. But it still might make for an interesting minimalist image. So 35mm focused on the rock. I've closed my eyepiece, I've checked my exposure times, they're the same as the previous set. So the first exposure will be f11, ISO 64 and 1 minute. Let's do that one now. Okay, that's the first exposure done, and I'm now going to take the ISO down to the low 1 setting, so ISO 31, and that will give me a 2-minute exposure. Let's get that one done. And now f16, ISO on the low 1 setting and 4 minutes. Okay, so I made a rookie mistake here. I was shooting some nice slow-mo footage and I forgot to change the camera settings back. So that means that not only am I moving very, very slowly, but there's no audio. What I was actually trying to say here is that because as we got closer to the end of the day, closer to sunset, the light levels were dropping. And I calculated that I could extend my exposure time even more. So at the same settings, f16, ISO on the low 1 or ISO 31 setting, I could actually get a 6-minute exposure. And I wanted to give it a try and see what it looked like. Of course, the 6-minute exposure does require a little bit of patience. tell you what, when you're waiting for an exposure, 6 minutes seems like a really long time. Still, did my environmental duty, saw a bit of plastic floating around in the sea and went and pulled it out and stuck it in the bin. Always try and do that. If I find any rubbish anywhere, then I always try and pick it up and either stick it in a nearby bin or take it home and stick it in the bin there if I can, rather than leave it lying around. This exposure should be finished soon. Okay, we're not going to get anything decent sunset wise here, I'm 99.9% sure of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move on somewhere else nearby that might work for a sunset shot, although to be honest I doubt it. Now if we get a nice sunset, I'll continue this video, I'll carry this video on. But otherwise, I'm going to call this video finished. And hopefully I've got a couple of interesting long exposure shots. As I said, I'm going to show you, a quick look at each of the variations, and then I'll share with you which one I think has worked the best in terms of exposure time. So I'm hoping I'll have one a bit more telephoto, so a bit less minimalist, because there'll be the bigger rock in it. But still long exposure, and then hopefully a very minimalist one with the rock pretty small in the scene, and that could be up to a 6-minute exposure. We'll have to see. I think that may be the longest exposure I've ever done. Can't be sure, but I think it might be. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video and the images and anything else. If you have, please consider hitting that thumbs up, give it a like. Maybe share it on social media, and typical, a load of noise going on in the background. Of course, if you are not already a subscriber, then maybe now would be a good time to just hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of my future videos. And if you hit the notification bell, you get a notification, funnily enough. Leave me a comment, let me know what you think, and as always, I really appreciate you taking the time to watch, so thank you very much. And until the next video, bye. Oh yeah, look at those skies, gorgeous.